we will inshallah try to conclude talking about al-adl and its importance in our religion, in our life, in the important role of restoring our dignity as Muslims and to bring back the pride of Islam. Al-adl, if you recall, is fairness and justice. We're supposed to be fair in everything we do, in what we say, in how we act and behave with Muslims and non-Muslims alike. This was Allah's order to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who ordered us to do the same as well. And yesterday we talked about being fair with the children, with your own offspring. And we got a number of questions from brothers and sisters who were a little bit confused of this aspect, and we cleared it, inshallah, hopefully, that it is totally prohibited to differentiate in gifts to your children, and you have to be fair with them all. When it comes to giving a gift without any reason, whether it's for Eid, whether it is for passing the exams, you have to be fair to all, whether young or old. And if you recall, I quoted the hadith of An-Nu'man ibn Bashir, may Allah be pleased with the man, with his father. But when it comes to allowance, when it comes to daily expenses, when it comes to things that are a necessity and a need, not a luxury, not something that is extra like a gift, in this case you don't have to be fair. So if you have two children and one of them needed to be operated upon, the other one does not have the right to say the operation cost you 2,000 euros, so give me a similar amount. If one goes to the university and one goes to kindergarten, so you don't give them the same daily allowance, because this is different. Their expenses are different, and so on. If one is a boy and one is a girl, when you buy clothes to them, they're different. You may buy clothes that are more to the female rather than the boy, because the boy doesn't wear as much, and so on. And part of being fair is also to have fairness and justice with your spouses. So if a man is married to more than a woman, he's obliged to be fair to all of them. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal stated in chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, that you may marry as you wish from among the women, whether you take 2 wives, 3 wives, or maximum of 4 wives at a time. Providing that you're fair, but if you fear that you are not going to be fair and just, in this case, only marry one. And this was illustrated clearly in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet said, ﷺ, whoever has 2 wives and favors one of them over the other, he will come on the day of judgment with his side leaning or tilted. So it would be apparent to everyone on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection, that this person was not fair with his wives. But we have to make a footnote here to explain what do we mean by favoring one over the other. See, there are things that you cannot control. If a man is married to more than one woman, he may not be able to control his love and compassion. So he may love one more than he loves the other. He may have more affection and compassion to one more than the other. This is something that is beyond human control. Even when it comes to passion and desire, he may have to this one more than he has to that one. So is he considered to be unfair and unjust? The scholars say no, this is not within his control. It was known to all the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, that the Prophet ﷺ loved Mother Aisha more than all of his wives. This was a well-known fact. It is true that the Prophet ﷺ was wise enough to not tell the other women when he is with them that I love Aisha more than I do love you. Never. But this was well-known fact. And they themselves knew that because it's a feeling that may reflect, may resonate without you being able to control. However, the Prophet ﷺ never ever was unfair or unjust to them. So you have to be fair when it comes to financial spending. You have to spend here and here the same when it comes to giving. So we have to rectify our lives and see, do we treat our wives in fairness and justice? The Prophet ﷺ was once in the house of Mother Aisha. And while he was with his companions, our mother Safiya bint Huyay, may Allah be pleased with her, sent a plate with food in it to the Prophet ﷺ. And when the maid came and gave this to the Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha saw this, she was outraged, thinking that this type of audacity must not be accepted. It is her day, it is her house, and Mother Safiya is sending food. So she got jealous, and she smacked the hand of the maid, forcing the plate to fall on the ground, break, and the food to scatter on the floor. The Prophet ﷺ stood up, gathered the food, and explained to his companions that your mother has become jealous. Don't worry, it's natural. He said, غارت أمكم. Don't worry, this is natural. Now, the Prophet ﷺ did accept Mother Aisha to be jealous. This is only normal. What he did not accept was the destruction of such wealth. So he ordered Aisha to compensate Safiya with a plate of her own in exchange for what she had broken. And the food, the Prophet ﷺ collected it and they used it. So he said, إِنَاءٌ بِإِنَاء وَطَعَامٌ بِطَعَامٍ. If that was not usable, then Aisha should compensate the Prophet ﷺ and his companions with similar amount of food from her own house. This shows us how the Prophet ﷺ used to deal with his wives. He used to be fair to the extent that at one time he had 9 wives and he had to go to expeditions. He had to travel. So what does a person do when he has so many wives and he doesn't know who to pick or choose? Does he take them in turn? This is not possible. The last one would say, why was I the last? And maybe she would not attain her turn. Nobody knows. So as part of justice in Islam, we have what is known as al-qur'ah. And al-qur'ah is like flipping a coin to decide. and some may translate it as drawing the lots. And this was found in previous nations, but it was divided into halal and haram. So the haram was the one that was made to determine which way to go. And this was done by the pre-Islamic era, by the mushrikeen. Each one used to have 3 pens or arrows. Written on one of them, go ahead. The second one, do not go ahead. The third one was blank. So if I wanted to travel, for example, I draw the lots. If it says, go ahead, then I proceed. If it says, no, don't go, then I cancel my trip. And if it is blank, I retry it again. This was made prohibited. What is permissible is when the rights are equal. So each one has a similar right, and we have to have a decider. In this case, we refer to al-qur'ah, or to drawing the lots. So the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he traveled, he used to draw the lots between his wives, and whoever her name was chosen, she goes with him. So he writes, this one way of doing it, their names, and they put it in a pot, and a child, for example, comes and picks one, and the name that is written is the one who won. And this concept of qur'ah is found even in the Quran, where Allah Azza wa Jal, for example, says about Prophet Jonas, I think his name, Yunus. وَإِنَّ يُونُسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. When he was on the boat and it almost capsized, and the captain said, we have to unload. So draw the lots, and the one's name who's chosen, we must throw him in the sea, otherwise we will all drown. So they drew the lots 3 times. Each time Prophet Yunus' name was there. The third time he threw himself in the sea, or they threw him in the sea. Now this is the law of those before us, and not necessarily that the law of those before us is our law as Muslims. In fact, if it goes against the teachings of Islam, it cannot be accepted. This was permissible in their laws, it is not permissible in our law. So now, if we are in a similar situation, and they said we have to throw 10 of us into the sea so that the load is less, Islam says, no, you either die altogether or live together. The Muslims are equal in their blood, in their value. You cannot simply toss people away on the hope of something that is hypothetical. Maybe no one will be saved. So you would have murdered a person for nothing. Also, Prophet Zakaria, who was married to the aunt of Maryam, the mother of Jesus Christ, peace be upon them all. When Maryam was born, the scholars and the scribes of the Torah, they all wanted to take her in their custody and to take care of her. And they had a dispute. Zakaria said, her aunt is with me, and the aunt is like a mother, as the Prophet said, ﷺ. And they refused. They said that she is the daughter of the best man of our people and one of our greatest scholars. So we have to, each one wants the honor of taking her in his custody. So they drew the lots, as mentioned in the Quran, and it came in Zakaria's share. And likewise, the Prophet ﷺ used to do this when the rights of his wives were equal. So he had to draw the lots. Also, in a dispute, He did this once with two scholars or two companions who disputed on inheritance, and he advised them, reminded them of Allah Azza wa Jal. So both of them cried and wept and gave his share to his brother. So the Prophet ﷺ told them to draw the lots, and we know that there are other cases as well. So in short, Muslims must be fair and just. If you're a teacher, you have to be fair with your students. If you're a policeman, you have to be fair with the public. Don't give people tickets and not give the others. And if you are working also in a government post as an official, you must also try your level best not to do any dhulm, and to be fair with everyone. And all what we fall under at the moment of humility and weakness is due to our injustice. Not only in our families, but in our communities, in societies, in our countries. Between countries and countries, we are divided due to this injustice. And this is why the scholars said that Allah would grant victory and stability to the disbelieving nation, to the kafir nation, if they're fair and just, and will deprive this from a Muslim nation, from a believing nation, if they are unfair and there is injustice among them. And this is exactly what we see. The amount of fairness found in non-Muslim countries, not because they love fairness, not because their religion calls them to this, but because they know that the CCTV is watching them. That's why they have policies and procedures and they follow it. And they feel most likely that they will be held accountable for doing it. But the problem is that they implement these policies and procedures, while in the Muslim countries they fail to do this big time. And this is why the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, that verily the nations before you, Allah Azza wa Jal has destroyed them for a reason. And the Prophet tells us the reason. The reason is that when an honorable person among them steals, they let him go. And when a poor person or someone from the common folks or the ordinary people steals, they establish the prescribed punishment on him. By Allah, the Prophet says, by Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, were to steal, I would have chopped her hand off. And this is the ultimate justice, when you implement this on yourself and on your loved ones. So we should strive our level best to implement this justice in our communities, in our families, in all what we say and do. Only then we would have succeeded in going back to our religion and in establishing the basics.